So welcome everyone to another Ascending Tribe workshop. We have the amazing Danielle Massi here. Danielle's going to be talking to us about shadow work, doing the inner work, the inner worlds, and what shadow work means. So Danielle, would you like to give yourself a little introduction as well, and then you can go straight into it?
Of course. Hey guys, it's so nice to meet you. If you feel comfortable, I would love to see your faces. If you don't, that's okay. But I love connecting in with your energy, getting a feel for who you are. And of course, I'll have questions along the way for you. So seeing your faces is really helpful. Hey. Hey, so I'm Danielle Massi. I'm a licensed psychotherapist by trade, but I actually stopped practicing therapy a few years ago. Now I'm a best-selling author, motivational speaker. I host a huge annual conference in Philadelphia, PA called Selfish Philly that's all about self-care. And all of these other aspects of my life and the work that I do came from a cancer diagnosis that I had back in 2018. When I was diagnosed with cancer, it completely derailed my entire life. It changed my world. I'm a mom, I have two little kids, and it got me thinking a lot about, immortality too, and having to face the fact that I'm not immortal, which was shocking to me at the time. It was the week before my 30th birthday. So when I went through that process, as a therapist, I thought I had all the tools. I thought I had everything that I needed to be able to get through something that was so heavy. And technically I did. I had a team of people that I knew personally and professionally who could help move me through it. And still I felt stuck. I felt really depressed. I was terrified as I went through the whole process. And it didn't feel like I actually had what I needed to get through it. And that was how I found shadow work. Shadow work is something that was coined in 1863 by Carl Jung. And he was a psychiatrist. And when he coined the term shadow work, he was working at the time with Sigmund Freud, who you guys have probably heard of. And they were talking a lot about everything that gets repressed. Both Freud and Carl Jung worked a lot with repression because they felt like in a typical therapy setting, people talk about stuff and it only gets us so far. And I felt that. I felt that both as a professional and also as someone who was going to therapy at the time of my diagnosis. We were only getting so far. We weren't getting to the root of anything. We were just kind of hitting those surface level points, sometimes going a little bit below the surface, but it was only stuff that I could see. And it was the repressed stuff that I really needed to get to. And the stuff that was buried deep in my childhood, the stuff that came from abusive relationships, from my relationship with my parents, the stuff that came from my ancestors, and also from my past lives. So when I was sick and wanted to get to the root of all my shit and figure out why it was that I got cancer in the first place, I found shadow work again. Shadow is another term for the unconscious. So have you guys ever heard of shadow work before? Just raise your hand if it's something that you've heard of at the very least. Okay. So if you've never heard about shadow work before, shadow work is the process of going into the unconscious mind. This is a huge distinction and something that's really important. We all have three levels to our consciousness. We have our conscious mind, which is everything that you are fully aware of. If we picture an iceberg, the conscious mind is the stuff that's above the surface of the water. You can see it. It's right there in front of you. It's very clear. It's detailed. You know it intimately. That's where we spend most of our daytime, and yet it occupies the least amount of our cognition. The least amount of your mental space goes to the conscious mind. Below the surface of the water in this iceberg analogy is the subconscious mind. This is the stuff that's like right below the surface of the water. You can see it. If you're looking down into the water, it's there. It's kind of murky and distorted because it's under the surface, but it's still there. It's visible. For us, this is things like our automatic behaviors. This is like every morning you wake up, you start scrolling on your phone and you're not really paying attention, or you just start daydreaming when you're sitting at a kitchen table. It's the stuff that you do without realizing you're doing it. Most of the stuff that we deal with when we're doing the inner work ends up being subconscious stuff because it's what you can access. If you're journaling, you're accessing the subconscious. If you're meditating, you're probably accessing the subconscious. Or if you're going to a therapy setting, you're probably accessing the subconscious because it's the stuff that's just below the surface, but you can get to it easily. Now, the unconscious is the majority of your brain's mental capacity. imagine it like miles, miles below the surface of the water, and it just extends forever. The unconscious mind is kind of like a junk closet for your brain. Everything that you experience, every second of your life, every day, your brain is sorting information and is kind of thinking to itself, what do I do with this? How do I hold on to it? Do we need it? Do we not need it? And so the majority of things that you experience get stuffed into that unconscious mind. The important stuff, though, is the things that your brain puts there because it could potentially harm you. So these are the traumas, the heavy moments, the things that make you who you are, and you don't realize that they're there because they've been stuffed into that unconscious mind. It's weird how the brain does this, but it is a protective feature. And the reason why this happens is because if you were sitting with every bad thing that's ever happened to you, you wouldn't be able to get out of bed in the morning. You would feel miserable all the time because it would just be like those traumas are so present and so heavy and weighing on you every second of the day. So it is a good thing that our brain does this. Where it becomes problematic and where shadow work is really important is that when we put too much stuff into that unconscious, it actually starts to manifest physically. And this happens based on whatever the weak link in your genetic chain is. So my background before I even started becoming a therapist was in cognitive neuroscience. That's what I went to school for. It's always fascinated me kind of how the brain works and how intense it can be and how we literally know nothing yet. One of my professors told that to us on the first day. He said, everything you're learning today is already like 10 years outdated because the brain is such a new field for us scientifically. It's cool to figure it out. And as we go into this stuff, everything I tell you guys is already outdated, but I hope it sparks your interest and gets you excited a little bit. This stuff is deep. So as we talk about it, if anything's confusing or if you want to know more, feel free to drop it in the chat and ask questions. But I do want you guys to understand the why, so that when we do the how, you know exactly what you're doing and you have total control over what's happening to you. So our brains sort themselves out. They sort out those experiences into the conscious, the subconscious, or the unconscious through a very specific function. And it's called the subconscious feedback loop. So the subconscious feedback loop is made up of 4 parts. The 4 parts are your experiences, your chemical reactions, your physical reactions, and your thoughts. So here's how it works. Every second of the day, you're having experiences, and those are all sensory. You're hearing, you're seeing, you're smelling, you're touching, you're tasting. As you have these sensory experiences, your whole body is kind of taking them in through your sensory stuff, through your, the optical things that you see, through the sensory things that you're touching, through what you're hearing, through the auditory nerves, and the brain's essentially pulling all of that information together. It's collecting it. And when it collects that information inside of your brain, it has to figure out what to do with it. The easiest way for the brain to figure out what to do with sensory information is to go based on past experiences. And so your brain goes, have we had these experiences before? And it sorts through and it's like, yep, when they were 3, they had an experience that looked like this. They felt this thing, they saw this thing, they smelled this thing, they tasted this thing, and so on and so forth. And so what happens then is that you emit a bunch of chemicals, emotions, based on those past experiences that look close enough to the one that you're currently going through. Those chemicals are basically just messengers. That's all emotions are. They're sending a message down to the physical body of what you need to do. And that creates a chain reaction in the body, a physical reaction. That physical reaction could be your heart racing, your palms sweating, starting to get a little bit foggy neurologically. It could be that you start to tense up and you feel everything crunching, like you have your shoulders going up to your ears, you're bringing in all your limbs really close together. And that physical reaction then creates the next chain, which is a message that comes up from your gut back to the brain. It's a misconception that thoughts come from your head. Thoughts don't actually come from your head. They come from your gut, from the enteric nervous system. And so those physical reactions then have to tell the body, yeah, this is what we needed to do. Let's close that loop. This worked, or this didn't work. We need to try something new next time. And so a thought comes in to reinforce or to negate the current loop. So let's say it's reinforcing it. It's essentially telling you like, yes, this worked. This is what we need to do again, or this is terrifying, which is exactly what you thought it was going to be. So that reinforces the loop. So let's actually see how this would break down in real life, right? Let's say right now you were going through a really hard time. You feel like you're a wreck, like you don't want to get out of bed in the morning. You feel like everything is going wrong. And generally that's how you've been feeling for a couple of weeks. And so you woke up today and immediately your internet wasn't working. And then right after that, you had breakfast and a fly landed on your food and you threw it out because you're like, oh, disgusting, that's gross. Now you have to start all over, but you don't really have the energy to. So you just eat a protein bar or something instead. And then you want to get back into bed, but you have to hop on a work call and your boss immediately starts going in on you about all the things that you've done wrong. Any one of these things separately starts that chain reaction. And so what will happen is that experience, all the sensory pieces of it are going to start the chain reaction inside your brain. And your brain's going to go, when did they feel this last time? And so the last time might have been, 3 months ago. And the root cause of that, when we really start to go back, could have been when you were 2 years old. And the first time you ever felt it was when your mom had postpartum depression for 2 years. And she wasn't there to pick you up when you were sad. She left you crying in your crib. She didn't feed you when you needed to be fed, didn't change your diaper when you needed it. And so all the same feelings would come up, the feelings of hopelessness, sadness, listlessness, lethargy, all those same feelings. So the brain goes, okay, we have loads of information about this. They've been going through this their whole life. This is a strong, strong pathway. So we know what emotions we need to send down to the body. We're going to kick into freeze, that fight, flight, or freeze response. And so adrenaline and cortisol start to pump. They get sent down to the body and you start to freeze. You start to feel like your limbs aren't working. Your brain gets foggy. You start to tense up. Your heart is beating out of your chest, right? That sends an emotion back up through that enteric nervous system, a thought into your head. Here we go again. My life is worthless. I'm worthless. This is hopeless. Why do I even try? And that completes the loop. The point of shadow work, the reason why we do shadow work in the first place is to literally interrupt that subconscious feedback loop. So even though this practice itself is kind of psychological and very spiritual in practice, we're doing something very scientific in that we're trying to interrupt the subconscious feedback loop. When we interrupt that loop and we do it appropriately by pulling on all of your senses, the taste, the touch, the smell, the feelings, the emotions that go behind it, the physical reactions and the thoughts, when we can cut those off at the knees in every single direction, what we're doing is changing your life because we are literally reprogramming you from your brain, your body, your emotions, and your energy to be different. How many of you guys have things that happen to you that trigger the crap out of you? Stuff that doesn't bother other people. I love that somebody's phone just wiggled. Like, yeah, the phone's saying yes. We all have them, right? We all have triggers. Things that nobody else gives a shit about, but they bother you. That's a sign of some kind of unconscious trauma that you have buried deep back within your brain. Little moments like that are just kind of signs that we need to do this work, or there's something that could be done here to help move things in a different direction. So that's the scientific piece of it. So let's go into the fun stuff, the spiritual kind of psychedelic side of the whole thing. When we do shadow work, what we want to do is actually access those unconscious memories and see them again and re-experience them as if they were happening to you right now. So the way that we can do that is by meditating to the point that you are able to access them through something called theta brainwaves. Theta brainwaves are what you feel as you're drifting off to sleep. You're still awake enough that if you wanted to, you could like get up and take a phone call or like go drink some water. Like you're awake. You're not physically out of it. You're not mentally out of it. You are fully present, but you're drifting off enough that your brain is kind of opening the door on those unconscious experiences, and you can tap into them if you want to. And what happens when we do this, if your energy is clear, like if you've been working on all the other stuff, like opening up all your chakras, if you've been working on really seeing clairvoyantly or tapping in with any of the clairs, any of the four, if you guys have heard of those before, if you're able to do those things, what happens is you can remember those experiences and walk through them again. And what you'll do is you'll go through them again completely. Drop into the body that you had when you were 2 years old. Drop into the body that you had when you were 18 and you got into your first fist fight, or in a past life when you were beheaded by a guillotine. And when you drop into that, the point of doing that is we want to interrupt that subconscious feedback loop by making you experience it differently, by making you feel differently in your body. The way that I like to do that is through breath, because I find that it's just the easiest way. Because most of the time when we have these unconscious memories, they are really fucking heavy, right? If we're talking about being beheaded or having a mom that was not there for you because she had postpartum depression, your body is freaking out in those moments. And when we start doing shadow work, I'll take you to those moments and you'll start to feel it. Starts with that heartbeat, getting faster and faster. And then you feel your palms getting sweaty. You start to have that tension. Every time we do this, I see people and their shoulders start to go up, where the breathing gets shallow. So the head's kind of moving as they breathe. If we can stop those things in their tracks and bring you back to your slow, calm, even breath, what we can do then is we can interrupt that subconscious feedback loop and change how you feel about this moment, this pivotal moment that is stuck in your head right now. So when we do that, when you re-experience it next time and you go through it differently, you can change that trauma completely. You change how it's stored in your brain, in your body, in your emotions, and your energy. And that itself has a ripple effect. Because if we can kind of pull this trauma out at the first time it happened, at the root, then there's no early reference for your brain to go back to kind of go, okay, we're in a stressful situation that's making us feel maybe a little hopeless. When did we feel that last? It pulls out that old Rolodex of past experiences and it can't find the root. And it has to choose something else. Like, okay, maybe we weren't going to feel that way about it this time. You know, there was another time they felt that and they got out of it pretty quick. Let's go to that time instead. And let's use that as our reference point. So then the emotions are peace and calm, understanding. The chemicals that are pumped down are dopamine and serotonin, keeping you really even, really relaxed, maybe even grateful for some of the shit that you're going through. The physical reaction is, again, lots of peace. The breath isn't picking up. You're not having that tension in your shoulders. You're not having that foggy brain. And then that sends a thought back up of like, no, this actually worked. This was better. So that's what we want to do with shadow work. That's the point of it. I see other people talk about shadow work sometimes, and what they'll talk about is the subconscious stuff, the journaling, the getting underneath the surface, but not going all the way to the root. And that stuff is awesome, but it's not going all the way there, which is why a lot of people get frustrated when they think they're doing shadow work, but they're not really doing shadow work. They're dipping their toes in, they're starting to go into that process. But until you see the root cause, the reason why everything started the way that it did, you're not actually going to know what it is that's happening to you. And we're not going to be able to change it on that really chemical base level. So I know that normally when these talks happen with Ascending Tribe, it's like an hour and then there's Q&A at the end. I want to do things a little bit differently. And if you guys have questions now, before we get into more of like the doing the shadow work part, feel free to ask them now, because I know that I just threw so much dense information at you guys. And if you don't have questions that you want to ask here, because you want to ask them privately, you can always reach out to me on social media. My tag is right there in the chat. And for anybody watching the recording, I'm sure that you're going to get that later too. So I know that some of this stuff can be private. And also this is heavy, heavy work. This is not like energy work. We're clearing stuff and then it's gone and it's kind of surface level, which is also lovely. Just totally different. So let me know if you guys have
I
any.
just want to add something.
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know whether to ask my questions yet, but I will just say, after hearing all of this, this has just made me realize that I am a toe dipper. I'm one of those people where I thought I was doing kind of deep shadow work, and maybe I'm not, but you know that I do work with plant medicine as well. So I guess my question is, how would you incorporate doing the plant medicine with the shadow work then?
Yeah. So depending on which plant it is, it can actually bring you into that unconscious space. So for instance, ayahuasca is one of the ways that people can access the unconscious mind. And I think that's why it's such a popular modality for the people who really want to rip the Band-Aid off and just go for it. Because whether you like it or not, when you do something like ayahuasca, you are opening the door to that unconscious mind and it won't close. For the number of minutes that you are stuck in that space, you have to deal with the unconscious. It's coming up and it won't turn around. My only gripe with things like ayahuasca is if you don't have a really good guide with you who's going to help you interrupt that unconscious process, that subconscious feedback loop in the moment, you could potentially just be bringing traumas up to the surface and letting them sit there, which, if you guys remember from the beginning of this talk, is basically the worst thing that you can do for yourself. Because if you just sit with your trauma all the time, you're going to start to feel sick all the time. You're going to get depressed. You're going to get really anxious. We have to rework how it exists for you. So if you're using plant medicine to do shadow work, you have to make sure that you're altering that subconscious feedback loop. Do something in those moments to change how you feel about it, how you see it, how it lives in your body. So I'll give you guys an example of this. I have a really good friend, Aubrey, whose father is a celebrity in America, and he is a bit of an asshole, like just a complete dick. And he basically traumatized her whole life. But celebrities tend to be narcissistic, so he could never see his role in her trauma. So she did what most of us do, which is bury that trauma somewhere that she forgot about most of it. She knew she hated him. She couldn't remember why. And she didn't remember the details of it, just the things that happened in her teenage years, in her 20s and her early 30s. Well, he went to an ayahuasca ceremony. So of course, like any celebrity with loads of money, offered to pay for her and her little sister to go down and do their own ayahuasca ceremony. And so they did. They flew down in a private jet. They went down to, I think it was Cuba, and they had an ayahuasca ceremony with like 15 other people. And as all this stuff came back up, the person who was facilitating the experience didn't actually know how to help them. And so she remembered everything without actually healing anything. So she came out a little worse than how she started. And that was how she found shadow work and breath work, which are the things that she practices now. And she's a breath work facilitator. She's phenomenal. With that practice, she's able to alter that subconscious feedback loop because she can remember what happened and change the breath pattern, which in turn changes that autonomic nervous system response of having adrenaline and cortisol pump. It changed everything because she was able to alter that pathway. So I know this is a very long-winded response, but plant medicine is wonderful, but you have to make sure that you are changing how it exists in your body. You can't just bring it up to bring it up.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I feel like I have a lot more work to do.
We all do. I do shadow work and I have a lot more work to do. When you think about it, we've all had so many lives. When we get into this stuff, we see past lives too. It tends to happen. It was something that happened very unintentionally for me. I never intended to do that work. And we just ended up slipping back there time after time because the past lives tend to have the root cause of what it is that you're going through. So think about everything that you've gone through in your current lifetime. I'm in my mid 30s. I have a fuck ton of trauma. There's plenty here. And then multiply that by 1,000 because every past life that you have has trauma in it. We don't always carry the memories of every past life, and we don't carry all of the memories, but we do have a lot of them. And the ones that we hold on to impact how we see the world now.
I'm going to save the rest of my questions to the end, but if anyone else wants to come off mute and ask Danielle anything now, you're more than welcome.
Yeah, while you guys are thinking of anything you want to ask, my plan with you guys, if you guys are down for it, is to do a little shadow work session. Actually have you guys meditate to the point that you can remember some unconscious material and then alter it here so that you can actually see it. I'm one of those people who learns by doing. I don't know about you guys. I used to teach at a pretty prominent university here in the States, and I hated on the days where I had to just lecture the whole time because I felt like people were drifting off to sleep and you're only going to retain so much. But on the days where we can actually do something and have an experience that sits with you, that makes it work. So let me know if you guys have any other questions before we jump in. Cool. Saving mine to the end. Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, then any other questions we'll just save to the end then. And then what I want you guys to do is to make yourselves as uninterruptible as possible, because with shadow work, we do need to access that theta brainwave state. So locking your doors so nobody can come in and ask you where their keys are, turning your cell phone to silent so that it doesn't interrupt, making sure the dog is let out so you don't have to worry about them barking in the middle. Anything that makes you really closed off and secure in your space. It's so important for shadow work that we're able to access that unconscious mind, and we can only do that if you can go there. And then the other things you can do to help it are to get somewhere that you feel really comfy. I know for you guys in the UK, it's like 7:30 p.m. So it's getting kind of late. So if you're somebody who falls asleep early, don't lay down, but you do have the option to lay down or sit up. Just depends on you. I like blankets, pillows, anything that makes me feel cozy, just not so cozy that you fall asleep. Remember, this is kind of like the space before sleep. Theta brainwaves are when you start to drift off. So it's natural to kind of head in that direction. So anything you can do to make yourself comfy, but not that comfy. And as long as everybody's there, the people that I can see, it looks like you guys are good. Take off anything. Yeah, you can turn your camera off if you want to. You can take off anything that could potentially distract you. Earrings, watches, glasses, anything that will pull your body's attention. Good. And then what I want you guys to do is to close your eyes. And I want you to start taking some really deep breaths. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. As we go through this process, your breath is going to be the most important piece of it. Allow that breath to fill up your lungs. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. As you breathe, I want you to really focus on filling your belly with air, not your shoulders. We all have a tendency as we breathe to breathe upwards, but I want you to breathe down as if you're breathing into the earth, connecting the base of your spine into the earth with every deep breath in. As you feel that breath pulling down, I want you to allow it to anchor you in here. With each breath, I want you to imagine roots growing down the base of your spine, feeling them extending out of your spine down into the earth below you. Feeling those roots snaking down into the earth, down through anything that's below you, whether it's flooring, concrete foundation, grass. Feel those roots snaking down as they make their way into the dirt. And as they root themselves in place, I want you to feel so connected to yourself here in this moment. It's only you and your breath. Feeling that air as it fills you up. And on the exhales, I want you to begin to imagine that you're exhaling anything heavy that you might be carrying with you. Any darkness, any tension, sadness, regret, any of these heavier, dense emotions, feeling them leave your body on your exhales, letting every bit of them go. As you breathe out and release all that heaviness, feeling yourself so grounded and so connected in this moment, so safe, so secure. I want you to feel yourself on the next inhale, breathing in pure white light energy, visualizing it coming in through your nose, down the back of your throat, down into your lungs, and then seeing that white light air getting pushed through every piece of your body. Feeling it making its way around, connecting in with every cell, tissue, and fiber of your being. And once your entire body feels like it's filled up with light, I want you to feel that white light coming out of the crown of your head, right through the top, making its way up to connect you in with everything above you, the sky, space, the stars, the universe itself. Begin to see it fraction off, looking almost like roots extending upwards, made of pure light. And as you feel your body so connected in here in this moment, so at peace, I want you to ask yourself in your head, where is it that you are carrying pain and tension today? And then scan your body until you feel it. It might be a twinge in the back of your knee, a stabbing pain in your traps. Maybe it's just a little flicker of pain in your ankle. But wherever it is that you feel it, wherever it is that you're holding on to this tension or this pain today, we're going to go figure out why that is. Why it is that you are holding on to that specific discomfort, why it's trapped in your body. I want you to imagine that as your body continues to stay here, that your soul is surrounded by pure white light in every direction, and that you are freely able to move amongst this pure white light. And right before you, a doorway is going to appear. Some of you are going to see this doorway very clearly. And for some, you might just know in your head that it's there. Let's allow more details to come through. Imagine what this door looks like for you. Is it made of brick, vinyl, cement, metal, wood, clouds? Visualize that doorway. See it in your mind's eye. Look at all the details of it and just take it in for a moment. Beyond that doorway is the root cause of that discomfort or pain that you're feeling. And so when you're ready, I want you to take a really deep breath in and hold it at the top. And on the exhale, push that door open. And let yourself step through to the other side. As you step through, allow yourself to just ground into this new time and place. Allow your feet to connect in with the earth. Whatever the ground looks like here, just allow your feet to connect in with it and notice what it feels like. Rolling your feet around, the soles of your feet. If you can see it, beginning to take in all the little details. And if you can't, asking yourself, what is below me? And trusting the answer that comes through. Notice if you're wearing anything on your feet. You might be barefoot. You might have shoes on. They might be shoes that don't look like anything you yourself have ever owned before. Try and allow those visuals to come through. Once you can see your shoes, notice if your feet look any different than they currently do. Maybe they're tiny. Maybe you're a small child here. Maybe they're huge because this is from a different lifetime. Allow your gaze to move up just a few feet in front of your face and begin to take in everything around you. Notice if there's anything you can hear. If you can hear the clanking of pots and pans or the wind behind you. Maybe you can hear people's voices singing, or maybe it's silent and all you hear is your heart beating. Allow yourself to let that gaze continue up a little more and take in everything about this place that you've landed. Noticing all of the little details. And as you do, asking yourself if there's anything here that feels out of place, anything that you're confused about. Or if there's something here that you need to see to release. Allow yourself to be brought to that moment that you need to see. The reason that you came here, the moment that you need to alter in some way. Feel yourself walking in the shoes that you did once before. And watch this specific moment play out for you again. But as it does, breathe. Focus on keeping that breath even and calm. Remind yourself as you go through it that even though your soul is in this moment, your body is not, and your body is safe. As you breathe and you connect in with this moment, allow it to unfold fully. See everything that you need to here. And if it hasn't come through yet, let the reason for the pain in your body that you scanned just a few moments ago come through. Let yourself witness why that trauma is stuck in your body and why it's stuck in that specific place. Once you've seen everything that you need to see about this moment, look down at the spot on your body that the pain is coming from. If it's somewhere that you can't see, like on your head or behind you, hold up a mirror to it. Notice what it looks like. Maybe there's a scar or a gaping hole in that place. Whatever it is that you're witnessing, that's the energetic representation of this moment in time and its impact on you, its hold on you. Take a moment and ask yourself, how has this past moment been impacting me currently? And let yourself see every way that this is impacting you now. Look down at the spot again, whether it's with your eyes or with a mirror. And I want you to notice a black root growing up out of that spot, like a weed. Notice, though, that it's thicker. Maybe it has things about it that are sharp. And what we need to do is we need to rip this out of you so that it no longer has an energetic hold on you anymore. When you're ready, I want you to take one of your hands and both in your mind's eye and also physically in the place that your body currently is, I want you to place your hands on that root and grab hold of it. And what we're going to do now is we are going to pull that root out so that this moment no longer lives within you energetically, physically, emotionally, or neurologically. For a moment, I want you to feel how strong you are by taking some deep breaths in and feeling that strength moving through your chest, rolling your shoulders back and feeling how powerful you are. Reminding yourself that it's your life and you get to choose. On your next big breath, hold it at the top. And as you hold that breath, I want you to imagine green light energy pouring out of your heart, down your arms, and into the hand that's holding that root. And on the exhale, rip it out. Once that root is out, drop it on the ground and watch it as it disintegrates and evaporates into nothing. Take both of your hands and place them over that spot where the wound now is. And allow that green light energy to keep pouring down your arms, down into your palms, and into the wound as you allow it to begin to energetically heal that space on your body. Feel free to gently massage over it so that you can feel that energy as it's transferred. And witness as that green light pours in from your hands into that spot in your body. Keep doing that until you feel that that wound is no longer there. And then take your hands off and notice that it's gone. Notice that you too are no longer in that memory anymore as you're back in that white light space. The doorway now disappeared. No longer an access point for your trauma. Feel the roots as they come out of your spine down into the ground. And the energetic roots coming out of the crown of your head, connecting you up with the universe. And as you feel yourself connecting into both of those things, bring yourself back to your physical body. Taking another deep breath in, bringing awareness back, feeling into your fingers and your toes, connecting back in with your chest as you breathe in and open that chest up, breathing out, letting everything else go. As you slowly start to come back, rolling your head and your neck. And whenever you're ready, at whatever pace feels best for you, slowly start to open your eyes. When you fully come back here, take as long as you need to come back, but I do recommend journaling out whatever it was that you saw, if there's somewhere that you have nearby that you can write, even if it's on your phone. When we do shadow work sessions, sometimes in the moment, nothing makes sense. or there's things that you saw that aren't going to be meaningful for you today, but they're going to be meaningful for you later. So as you journal those things out, no details too small. You can write down everything that you experienced, how you felt, what it was like. And as you guys do that, I'll tell you that when I was a therapist and people would come in to see me to talk about their life and their experiences, they were seeing it from a first person point of view. It was so close that they couldn't see the big picture. It didn't make sense to them. But as a third person in the room, someone who is not living those experiences, it was easy for me to see it, like a puzzle that I could already see all the pieces and how to put them together. If you can create that distance for yourself with journaling, by actually writing down everything from that really subjective place, you can start putting the pieces of your own puzzle together quite easily. And take all the time that you guys need to journal. I know this is an intense process, and the first time you do it, you might have even seen nothing. In the beginning, it can be a little bit difficult. When I work with groups in my group program, we spend about 2 to 3 weeks really opening up all those psychic abilities. So spending time working those things out like a muscle, increasing clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance. So that by the time we go into a meditation like this one, the images, the sounds, all the sensory things come through like that. So for you guys to be diving in out of nowhere, if you had any trouble accessing, it is not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. It's just something that you can practice. Now, this is recorded. You can do it again and again and again. And if you did see some things, next time you do it, you might see completely different things. It's whatever your unconscious needed you to see today. It's like, let's say you were scanning your body in the beginning and you felt some discomfort in your back, like in the lower left side of your back. Next time you do it, it might be all balled up in your wrist, and the experience you have will be a lot different. Or you might have nothing going on, like things are pretty clear. And so when you go into the unconscious, it won't be a pain point. It'll be something that's like a powerful moment, something you need to see to learn from, to pull that energy back to now. If you guys have any questions about what you just went through or about shadow work in general, you can put them in the chat. You can turn your mic on and ask them, whatever feels comfortable. And like I said before, you can also message me too. I know that this stuff can be kind of personal.
I have a really quick question. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Daniel, do you want to go? You go first. I'm asking too many questions.
Okay, I wanted to ask just one question, because I'm doing shadow work kind of often, I would say. And I tried many therapists, and everyone uses the visualization where I ask person there, which I visualize, it's myself or my father or whoever, and I'm supposed to ask him something. And those people are like statues, they are dead. There is never answer. I know the answer from my head. For instance, my trauma from my father, I know every answer from him, because my mother asked those things, but it's never from the visualization. And everything I imagine is just like a 3D model. It doesn't live. So this question, how to make it live or something.
Okay, so that specific issue that you're talking about, where it's almost like everything is frozen, is a sign that you are clairvoyant, because you can see it's all right there in front of you, but there's something that's blocking you from being able to let it live, something that you're either afraid of interacting with or is halting your ability to have that interactive experience with it. Or the other thing that it could be is that you need to stop externalizing and internalize instead. The technique that you're talking about is an old therapy trick called the empty chair technique. What we do in the therapy room is we basically want you to speak to someone who isn't there. So you can do that by literally talking to an empty chair, which is why it's called the empty chair technique, or visualizing somebody. But I always found, and this is a personal thought on it, that when we do that, we kind of take our own power away, because it's kind of like saying like they have the answers and I don't. Where what you might need is to go more on the internal side and think about what do I need? What do I need to experience? My question for you, Daniel, is when you daydream, does the same thing happen or does it come to life?
If I'm daydreaming, it's like a reality. Like my mind doesn't see any difference between my dreams, which I make, like, and the reality. So.
They're very close, very
but
similar.
But I'm the designer, so that's big difference, because I am the regisseur, I would say. Or is it the right word? I make them say, every person there is talking to me, or because I say whatever they, but it's not basically, I'm just kind of making it happen. I don't really need to think about this much. I just start it and it goes. Yeah, that's kind of true.
Okay. So then question, when you did this meditation just now, did it feel frozen or did it feel like it was moving?
This meditation I've done many times before, and I'm just in light. Like it's like thousands stars, light, and nothing else. When I've asked like the questions, I felt like intuitively that dirt is under me, and I mean, I've been eating chili several hours now, and I have pain in my belly, so it may be
that might be from the food and not from trauma.
Yeah. But from my last therapy session, which was 2 days ago, I know that it's in the belly, so I've been working with this knowledge, and so this I used, but I never see stuff like in this kind of therapies.
Okay, so here's what I want you to do. Give me 2 seconds because I have to grab something. Okay, so claircognizance is a stronger gift for you. You just know things. Clairvoyance looks like it's a little bit of a weaker one. So what you can do to start working this out, kind of like a muscle, is to start looking at images. So I'm just going to pull a random card from a tarot deck. So here's an image, right? This is the Isis tarot deck. So you see her, she's standing here. She's got a staff in her hands. She's wearing all gold. She's in this pose. What you do to practice and to really strengthen this muscle is to recreate this in your head, but to make it move. So what you want to do at first is spend about 30 seconds staring at the picture and then close your eyes and reconstruct it inside of your head. Bring back all the details to things as subtle as the different shades of teal behind her. When you've got it pretty perfect, then what you're going to do is you're going to purposefully in your head make her move, because you can do that. So
I think I've been practicing this 20 years, so I can do this great. I'm great in this. So.
Okay. So then next time you have one of those statues that you're talking to, force them to move. You're controlling, right? You think you're not in control, but you have all the control. You have all
that's not problem. I can control everything. That's the problem. There is no answer because I'm the designer. Like everything can do whatever I can, whatever I want. It's like ideal movie.
So then why do you think that's a problem? Don't you think it comes
because they are asking me make them answer questions, and I say like they are going to say whatever I think.
Yeah, that's the point. Whatever you think is the answer. It's not them. Like when we channel, even in those moments when we're getting downloads and things, you're having those specific thoughts for a reason. It's not because it's coming out of the mouth of your father. It's because you're channeling the answer and then projecting that into your father's mouth coming back at you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, everything makes sense. And even they said like but you are answering stuff from your head because you know the answers. I mean, yes, those are the only answers I have there. Like I can't say anything else but this. So there was like my conflict with my therapist was like I have only the known answers and like nothing else. But I'm like very intuitive and I feel through the truth. So if I think something, I can ask my intuition and I know if it's right or not.
Yeah.
So
I don't think you're wrong. I think
well,
you're right. I think what might be happening, and this is a little deep, but I think your therapist might be a little bit thrown by the fact that you get the answers and that it comes through to you.
he has a different experience. It works something different from him. But I tried two people, and they have the same method. So it's I guess it's used here. But I think I would like to make work their method as well. You know, so that was the my goal. Like how to make it, because I'm very happy that I'm like such a skillful designer. But for instance, I know what happened to me in past. I was in like very deep meditation, and I've been able to talk with the picture, and the picture was like a real human, and I've had answers from there, which was not from my head. It was like astral being, and it might have been like I've been in kind of different state of mind, and so I imagine it like this. So I have the experience already.
And you're trying to get back to that.
Yeah, and I would like to control, like make it work. Yeah. So
Okay. All right. I get what you're saying. Okay. So two separate thoughts in this. First, what you're doing already isn't wrong. It's just clear cognition. You have information that's coming through to you and it's right. So you have to trust when it does come. But if you want the information to come from that upper level place, because there are all these different levels to like ascended masters and people that we can connect with, spirit guides, all the kind of stuff where it is more on the outside of you part, there has to be that piece of you that goes into the unconscious deep enough that you can't control anymore. It kind of ties your hands behind your back. Something that might be really good for you to try if your therapist does it, or if there's a way for you to seek it out elsewhere, is hypnosis. Because with hypnosis, it's like a level off from shadow work in the sense that you can't get up and walk away. Your body shut down. In a lot of ways, your mental processes are shut down on purpose, and you cannot control even if you wanted to. There's no aspect of you in those moments that's in control. For most people, I don't recommend hypnosis because of the fact that if we're going into trauma stuff, you want to have the freedom to get up and move if you need to. But it does sound like you're trying to get to that point where it's like your hands are tied. There's nothing you can do and you have to let that information come. If you do that a few times and you get into that sense of like, it's something that's recurring, you've done it enough times now that your body can kind of go into that muscle memory place because it remembers how to do it. You won't need to be in hypnosis anymore. You can just ask the questions.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, you got it. If you have more questions about this, this is a cool conversation. Just hit me up on social media. We can talk a ton about it. I have similar control things, so I relate so much to what you're talking about. It took me a little while to get into that space where I could just see unconsciously without hyper fixating on certain details or controlling it or feeling like I was, in my head the whole time. So we can talk forever about that, but let me know.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
Sonia's got a question. So
Yeah.
Sonia, if you want to come off mute, you can ask Danielle directly.
Yeah, hello, Danielle.
Hi.
I was just wondering, I didn't see anything. Is that normal?
Yeah, in the beginning, it's definitely pretty normal to not see anything. That's why I was saying before with my group programs, I work for a few weeks to really build up their psychic abilities first. But did you get anything? Like, were there certain things you just knew? Did you hear anything? Were there any other senses that were tapped in?
No.
Okay,
I
so
think
that's
I
something
might
to
even have nodded off a bit and come back.
That's also normal too. And the theta brainwaves, when we access those, that's what usually happens is we're drifting off to sleep. So especially the first couple times of ever trying it, it's so easy to fall asleep. What I would recommend for you is to start doing this, because this is recorded. You can do this exact same meditation, but do it
Yeah.
at a time that you know that you're definitely going to be awake.
Yeah.
And start to ask yourself as you go through it, what you see, and just hear the answer. So for instance, from wherever it is that you are right now, if I told you to picture an apple in your head, could you describe it to me?
A red apple, round.
Uh-huh.
It's got
Keep
stalk
going. Give me more.
stalk at the end.
Uh-huh. When you
Shiny.
see that in your head and it's
Yeah.
there, right? It's like behind your eyes is what I like to call it, or your mind's eye. You can see it. It's kind of faint. It's not as clear as seeing me right here on the camera, but it is there. You can strengthen that and make it stronger with practice. That same exercise I was just telling Daniel, where you look at a picture and you start to manipulate it a bit, can help.
Yeah.
Or also just doing these same kind of things over and over again. But your strongest gift typically for most people is clear cognizance, which is just a knowing. So even if I can't see the apple in my head, I know there's an apple there because somebody just told me to think about it. And I might get glimpses, like little bits of red, or maybe I could see the leaf coming off of the stem, but it's slight, it's small, and it's quick. The more you practice, the stronger that gets. But trusting your clear cognizance. It's like when I said to roll your soles on the floor, on the ground, sometimes people will feel like I'm rolling my feet on wood. And then it's like, I don't see anything. And you just kind of forget about it. Or you can feel the grass under your feet, or you just know that you're standing on a beach, but you can't see it, or you can't use the other senses. That's the start. And you just work to grow those spiritual gifts a little bit, working on your clairs, working them out like a muscle until it's super clear. But yeah, it's normal in the beginning to not see anything.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you
Where
got it.
where do we actually get, because I'm not on like Facebook and all that, or Instagram, so how would I get the recording?
I can send it to you, Sonia.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Yeah, you got it.
So I want to ask a couple of questions, but before I go to what I experienced, because I am quite a visual person, what I noticed throughout was that my analytical mind always gets involved. Like I'm such a mentalist, like I'm so in my mind, and it really does get in the way. And I don't know what part of the brain that might be. But so basically I'm visualizing, I'm having the experience, and I'll go into it afterwards. But throughout I can feel him, I'm going, what's going to happen? What's going to happen next? Like, what's going to happen? Like, and I'm just analyzing the situation. And then part of me is going, am I making this up? Or is this coming out? Like, I'm talking to myself at the same time while I'm visualizing. And it's quite annoying because at moments that analytical mind gets moved out of the way at moments. And when that happens, I notice, the vision flows more, the visual flows more, and I experience a little bit more and then a little bit more, but only once the analytical mind moves out of the way.
Yeah. So there's a name for that. That analytical mind is called the ego. So this is one of Freud's big discoveries when he was doing his work at the same time that Carl Jung was. The ego is an evolutionary function of the brain designed to keep you safe. The reason it exists is to make sure that you don't access the unconscious. Because typically, if we're accessing the unconscious, we're bringing traumas up that could hurt you. Like if you remembered seeing someone get stabbed on the corner when you were 4 years old, that would really mess with you. And so if you get close to opening up that door, what will happen is the ego will step in and it'll do anything it can to divert your attention. How do we move them away from the door? How do we get them away from this memory? Essentially, how do we bring them back into the subconscious or the conscious mind? And so it is fighting tooth and nail to make that happen. Until you can convince your brain that you are safe going into the unconscious mind, your ego will continue to do that. And it's normal and it is there to protect you. Now, what you need to do in the moments that that happens, if you do want to circumvent it, is to convince the ego, essentially, that you can access the unconscious and you will be fine. So not fighting it, not trying to push it aside, not trying to go to war with the ego in those moments. Instead, just acknowledging it for what it is and allowing it to be while you continue to do what you're going to do. When you do that and you kind of come to those moments of peace with the ego, it starts to back off a little bit. Just because of the fact that when you're doing that, you're becoming at peace and not at war with it, your breathing slows and you're already interrupting that subconscious feedback loop. So you're altering the normal pathway that your brain would be taking. The ego is actually kind of cool in a lot of ways, but in these moments, we don't want it to get in the way. And it can, in fact, get quite in the way. And the same thing about what Sonia said, my mind was thinking of other things. That is also the ego. Imagine it like a protective older sibling that's like, no, like you can't do this. I've done it before. I know this isn't going to go well. And you're like the little sibling that's like, I'm fine. I'm going to be safe. I watched you make mistakes. I'm cool. I'm going to be okay. Just allow it to try and protect you and don't fight it.
I love that perception, actually, because I've never viewed it like that. I'm always in a battle with it. And even on like the first time that I ever did ayahuasca as well, like my ego was in such a battle. Like I actually had the worst experience on the first night of well, no, it wasn't the worst experience, that's a lie, because there was many beautiful experiences, but I experienced that battle. It was literally like this. And it took me ages to kind of just work with the ego and like let its guard down.
Mm-hmm.
What I wanted to also share was my experience, if that's okay, of what I
of course
envisioned.
Yeah.
So first of all, I felt like really relaxed, and then when you said about where in the body are you feeling pain, so I actually tend to have my shoulders up, which is something it's just come into my awareness recently. Is it painful? It's not really painful, it's more discomfort, but I've been having a pain in like my left foot underneath. My right foot, sorry. And it feels like a pin going through underneath, like, and it's been happening for like the past couple months. And sometimes it goes, and then I haven't really noticed it being here lately. And I've had this sense that I feel like my body's trying to tell me something, because it's like nonstop. It's like, and I'm like, where is this pain coming from? I haven't damaged my foot. Like, okay, I go to the gym, but I stretch. It doesn't really feel like a muscular thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a pin going through my foot, and it is a little bit painful, right? Anyway, so as soon as you said, notice any pain in your body, it came straight back. And then I saw the door, and the door was white, and it was wooden white, but I didn't see any of the walls around it. I just saw the door, and then obviously I opened the door, but I was semi in and semi out. Like I was at points I was like in this world, in this other body, but then at points I was just like having no body, and I was just back peering through the door. The door was open, so I was like jumping through perceptions, I guess. So then I noticed I was walking on grass. I was in a forest. I could really feel the grass under my feet. Like I could really, really feel that. And I had this feeling, I had this sense, I was like, right, this doesn't feel like my body. And I felt like a young girl, and I had a white dress on, and I don't have a white dress. I don't really wear white dresses, but I felt like young. I don't know. I want to say like I was a teenager, maybe. Like I couldn't really place it. At some points it felt like I was a child, and at some points it felt like I was a young girl, like a teenage girl. And all I couldn't see above the waist up. I was in my body. I could see my feet. So I was looking down. I could see the feet, and I could see the white dress that was just coming like just below my knee, and it had like frills. I mean, it was quite detailed. I could probably draw the dress actually, but then it felt like I wanted to press a light switch, because I was in a forest and it was dark, but it wasn't like nighttime dark. It was like I could see very clearly. It was like there was a torch being shone on part of the forest, but the rest of it was dark, and I wanted to put a light switch on, to switch on the lights to see the rest of the forest. And then this is the part when my analytical mind gets involved, because like I noticed that I would start walking deeper into the forest, but every time my analytical mind was going, what's going to happen, what's going to happen, I felt heavy and I felt stuck, and I couldn't move, and I started to feel stuck and wasn't moving. And so that's mainly what I experienced. I actually didn't experience it. It was like mainly around that area. I wasn't really moving around much.
So I think you're thinking that you felt stuck and like you couldn't move forward because of your brain. But the sense that I'm getting is that that was what you felt back then. So whatever it was that you were walking through the forest for, it might have been because you were walking away from something, like something horrible happened and you were like trying to get away from it. But you ever feel that freeze response where it's like you want your feet to move, but you can't as much as you want to? Does it feel like it could have been that?
Yeah, there was a sense something bad happened. I just don't know what it was, but there was that feeling there, like I don't know, I witnessed something bad, or something bad was attempted on me. It was that feeling, but I didn't witness it. I didn't experience it. I just had a glimpse of that feeling.
Okay. Brilliant. So when you went through that whole experience, did you see that pain being connected to your foot?
Yeah, because I almost feel like I stepped on something while I was trying to walk away.
Yeah, I get that sense too. Okay, so when pain or trauma happens, like physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, sometimes it can be confounded with something else, like stepping on something at the same time as something else awful happening. So that can create a connection systemically within your body. So it's like your nerve endings are all freaking out in your foot at the same time as you're going through a trauma. When our brains process an experience, it could be like something beautiful, like sitting on a beach, and at the same time you're sipping hot chocolate because it's cold out that day. Every time you go to the beach, you might crave hot chocolate because the first time you went, it was cold and you had that. Our brains use as much information as they can to create an experience so that it can catalog things appropriately. So it sounds like the pain that you felt in your foot wasn't necessarily attached to what happened to you right before, but your brain associated the two, and now that's where the trauma stuck. It could have been something like seeing a dead body. It could have been something like seeing a dead animal. It could have been someone trying to hurt you, like someone trying to break your arm. We have no clue. But all we know is that the trauma itself is stuck in your foot, because when you were physically going through the trauma afterwards and having that intense fight or flight response, you had pain in your foot at the same time. So my recommendation for you for this is to keep going back until you see all of it. But as you do not forget to breathe. It's all about your breath. There's a reason you didn't see every piece of it today, and it's probably because you're not in the right headspace, or maybe because this is your first time ever doing this deep kind of work, or there is that ego block that's like, do we really want to go there and bring that stuff up? Whatever it is, honor it, don't force it. But when you're ready, go back and do it again and again and again, because you can do it over and over again until you get the full piece of the puzzle. When you get everything, that's when it can really detach. Because right now, maybe we pulled off some of the edge, but we're not getting to the whole thing because we didn't see everything. So whenever you're ready, do that again. And there's something else I wanted to say just about the ego and how this can kind of get in the way and like block the process. Don't, in the moments where like you're experiencing it in a past life, don't immediately think it's the ego. Sometimes it's just literally what you were going through at that time. In those moments, it is the analytical mind kind of going like, let's make sense of this. Let's figure this out. Let's be a detective. And in those moments, you could just take a deep breath and be like, no, let's just experience. Let's just be here for it. And if we're feeling stuck and like we can't see, there might be a reason for that. The experience of not being able to see around you, and it's almost like there's a light or a torch being held at the end, could have also been something you experienced then. When we have severe trauma to us, something that happens is tunnel vision. Literally, there's the reason we call it that is because your eyes are so warped in those moments that it's like you have black around the edges of your vision. Yeah. Sort of like if you get hit with something and you start to have a concussion, you will literally have black. It'll look like tunnels. So that too could have been something that you really experienced.
Yeah. It was literally like that. I also want to say about the breathing as well. But actually, I have two questions relating to this, because obviously it didn't feel like this current life. It felt like a different life. But what is the relation to my foot hurting now to then me accessing this vision or memory? What is the relation?
That's part of the reason why we need to see what caused it. So for instance, if what you saw was like, let me give you a real example of this. So I have a past life, one that I talk pretty extensively about in my book that's coming out in September called Shadow Work, where I was pretty young and villagers came to the house that I was living in and took my mom away and tried her as a witch. And my dad was the one who let it happen. The memory from that time impacts how I've shown up now, because there's a fear of making the people in my life kind of revolt against me and turn against me in some way. But if I didn't see that moment, I wouldn't realize why that's the block, because it doesn't matter to me. Like, I'll hop on a call with a bunch of strangers and be like, here's everything you need to know about shadow work. It's harder for me to talk to close family members about it because of fear that they'll turn on me. And that's directly from that past life. So understanding the context is key. We need to know what you saw. So if you realize that you saw something like an animal dying, that could be the reason why. That would cause you to feel certain things in this lifetime. I know that you've been going through some things energetically recently. So if you have been feeling the pain connected to that, it could be something tied to that past life. So maybe a month ago or a few weeks ago, when there was like health stuff going on, it's that immediate reaction of like, oh God, like here we go again. So it all depends on what you saw in that past life. Maybe it was a parent dying. Maybe it was someone faking an illness. Who knows what it was, but somehow it's connected to you in this moment, which is why it's coming up for you today.
Yeah, that does make sense. The other thing that I noticed with my breath, my breathing, was that because I got so focused on the vision at some points that I noticed that I wasn't breathing, and I stopped breathing, and I was like, I had to come back to consciously breathing. And then as I was consciously breathing, I lost the vision, and I found it really difficult to like do both.
You did too. Yeah, but that's normal. The reason why is because your neural pathway, that little highway center in your brain, is connected to not breathing in that other moment. So in the moments where you're like, breathe, you're severing a neural pathway. It's a process called synaptic pruning. And so you're taking yourself out of that moment on purpose. That's not a bad thing. It's exactly what you're supposed to be doing. If you stay in that moment and your breathing is changing, it's only because you're getting good at doing this work. And in the beginning, you're not going to be able to do that. It's okay. We're trying to kind of disconnect those old pathways, like breaking apart a Lego set and building a new one.
I just find this so fascinating that like, because it's such deep work, isn't it? So it's like, how, I mean, you must be able, like, you have to do this your whole entire life, right? To get to the root of everything.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that I feel like are core themes for us as people, like maybe 5 things, maybe 10 things, maybe 15, that it's like these define us as human beings. Because when our neural pathways are being formed when we're children, it really solidifies by the time you're 7. So whatever experiences are recurring for you before age 7, those are the ones that you're focused on. And because of the way that our brains work before age 7, it's very simplistic. We can only pay attention to so much. So it's not as much stuff in there as you think, because even if it's there, it's probably not a big thing. The big things are what we want to attack. So when I do shadow work with people, we do 8 shadow work sessions as a group, and you can do those same shadow work sessions over and over again. When we focus on 8, because in my opinion, if we can get the big guys out of the way, the other stuff is cake. Then it's easy. Now, when I do shadow work for myself, it's like, it's just like another Tuesday, no big deal. It doesn't mean the same thing to me as it did when I first started. And it was like my personality changed. I became someone who's very extroverted when I've always been a huge introvert. I stopped being afraid when I used to be afraid of everything. So it'll cause drastic shifts in a very short amount of time because the work is so deep. But it's not like you have to do it forever, and it's not constant.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I know Sophia's got some questions for you as well.
Absolutely.
Sophia, if you can
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. Hi.
Amazing. Hi, thank you so much for that amazing
Of course.
the talks before. I just a couple of things.
Mhm.
The first thing that whilst you guys were talking about past lives, something that recurringly comes up for me, which I find very odd, is I have a really big fear of birds, right? But I've had no experiences in this life for me to have a fear of them. The thought of a bird just makes me want to be like, it's really, it's, I can't explain, it's terrible. Like if I see one, I'm completely in the opposite direction. I've had someone say to me that it could possibly be from a past life. But I don't really know how to kind of go about it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So what you could do is take this exact meditation that we just did, this one today on the recording. And when we set the intention and we scan for the pain, what I want you to do is think in your head or say out loud, bring me to the pain that's associated with birds, and go see it. Now, because this is such a big fear for you, and if I could take a guess, it's probably like a very physical reaction. Like when you see a bird or one gets too near to you, it's like you have that pit in your stomach, your heart drops, you start to get sweaty, like a whole visceral reaction. Whatever it is that you see could end up being kind of intense. So you want to be very intentional about setting the scene beforehand. So things like lots of soothing candles, essential oils that make you feel good, somewhere really cozy, your breath is key.
Yes.
As much of the sensory things as you can change as humanly possible will help. When it's a big, big fear, I usually recommend working with somebody just because you have no idea what you're going to find. I'll give you a for instance on this one. I've always had a fear of mirrors, and that's weird. Like, who's afraid of mirrors? And it was my whole life. It always freaked me out. Like, I'd see them, and if I caught a mirror in the wrong direction, it was like my stomach dropped, my heart dropped, and it was just weird. I couldn't even explain that to people. And then I did this work with my old mentor, who actually lived in the UK. She was phenomenal. She passed away last year, unfortunately, but she was a lifesaver for me. And she brought me back to a past life where I saw someone who was going to kill me through a mirror and watched them kind of like shove a dagger into me. And so that fear is a past life fear. When we dealt with that and I realized where it was from and we changed how it lived in my body, it doesn't happen anymore. It just doesn't exist. That same fear doesn't exist. So you'll have a similar experience with the birds. Whatever it is. It could even just be kind of similar to what I was telling you before about the pain in the foot that could be associated, but like not necessarily the cause of. You could remember like being in the process of dying and having birds picking away at you. That's one that I've seen once or twice before from other people, where it's not that they caused you the pain, but they're very deeply embedded into it. And you think like your body remembers the feeling of them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. I did have in the visualization. It took me. It definitely felt like it was from a past life. It wasn't this life. I was younger. I was a little girl, and I was looking down, and I could see the little girl's little feet, and she had pink toenails. And it's quite funny. The vision I had in the visualization was very familiar because I've actually got a photo saved on my phone that I actually had to go back and find because it felt so familiar. Of exactly the vision I had, looked exactly like this photo I'd saved from ages ago. Now makes sense why I've saved that photo, because it was like kind of like a flashback, if that makes sense.
Like a
yeah, it was quite interesting. The thing that it may be that the birds are connected to that, because I did have three scratches on my shoulders, three scratches on my shoulders because I've been having a lot of pain and tension in my shoulders, which is where the pain was brought. The three scratches on my left shoulder didn't make sense in the dream, but maybe the fact that I'm bringing up the birds it might be to do with that. I don't really know. But I just find it very interesting.
It's fascinating when you start getting into it, and more will start to come forward the more often you do this. But you can use the same meditations 100 different ways. All you're going to do is set an intention. So do this one again. Set that intention ahead of time to see the pain related to the birds. Keep your body really calm, and then message me on social media afterwards and tell me everything that you see.
I will do, definitely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you got it.
Rebecca, did you have anything you wanted to share? You can write it in the chat. I'm not putting you on a spotlight.
Yeah, I'll share my experience. Sorry, let me go outside. It's lunchtime where I'm at right now, so my kids are a little loud.
Like the story of my life. My kids will be off the bus in 10, 15 minutes. I'm like, oh, I hope we finish before then, because otherwise all we're going to hear is them yelling.
Right, then you don't get anything done once they're home, huh? So when I was a toddler, I had this, I think I was 4. I had this like really vivid dream of what I thought was my mom and me, and we were getting like outfitted. I don't know how to explain it. Like somebody was making me a dress, and it was like this amazing, beautiful, very expensive dress, and my mom didn't get anything. And she just had like plain clothes, and I just cried and cried and cried about this dream as a 4-year-old, and my mom was like very confused about it, right? Anyway, and I saw that dream again in this meditation, which was kind of weird to me. But I've never like explored past life options for myself or anything, but I truly felt like in that meditation, it was like I could see the slippers on my feet and everything, and the other person, like her name was Mary, and she wasn't my mom, but she was my caretaker, and the door I saw was like a door to what seemed like a very expensive, like a really mansion castle type of home. And something that I've like been really worked up and upset about lately has been like equality and like not treating everybody equally. And so I don't know, it was crazy. I don't know if you have any insight into that, but
Absolutely.
It was just crazy. And I just like bawled the whole meditation because I don't know, it was weird to have all those feelings come up.
Yeah, that memory obviously is coming through for you for a reason now, but it was prominent for you as a kid. Kids remember their past lives pretty easily. My kids now are 6 and 8. And when they were younger, they would talk about their past lives because we've always been really open. And it's not something that I like push onto them or that they even know that I do necessarily. But when it comes through, because it does, I just ask questions like, oh, that's interesting. What did you see? Okay, like tell me more about that. And they can remember details that are shocking. When you were having these memories of your past life back then, it might not have even been that big of a deal, whatever it is that you were experiencing, but it was something that made you have a physical reaction when you brought it up to your mom. Like, why doesn't she remember? Why is it that she's not remembering this thing with me? So that'll make a memory kind of stick in your body. Because as a kid, when someone questions you or they make you feel like you're crazy or you don't know what you're talking about or any of those things, it creates that weird chemical cocktail that makes the memory stick. But you did say that the equality piece is interesting too. Like she wasn't getting a dress and you were. You might have been rich in that past life. Maybe she was just a caretaker, like a nanny of sorts, who would take you to get dresses made and she wasn't your mother and you would feel bad about it. There's a lot more to explore there. So that's something that you could definitely check in on and see how it feels in this life. When we remember,
it was very interesting.
Yeah. When we remember memories like that, and it just feels like it creates that dissonance of like, I'm not like that, or it doesn't feel comfortable in my body, it's going to sit with you and come up in so many different ways. So it'd be cool for you to explore that. I would do this meditation again and just let it come through even more and start asking questions, right? Because as you guys are doing these meditations, I'm asking questions. You can ask questions too. Ask yourself, like, why am I seeing this? Or is there something I'm missing? Or see if you can manipulate it and move it around. You can only see what you saw last time. You can't change things completely, but you can just bring more awareness and let yourself explore a little bit the things that are already there within your head. So let yourself see every piece of it. I'm dying to know what it is. So reach out to me and let me know the details when you find it. But it's so normal for kids to have memories from their past lives.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'll reach out to you. I think I follow you on Instagram. So
Perfect.
Thank you.
I'm excited to hear. Sonia just asked a question in the chat. She said, my mind is always overthinking things. How do I stop it from doing that? So this is the ego, what we were talking about before. So if you feel like that ego is so loud that you can't even get past it, like you can't do anything, it's because you're not taking enough time to let the ego talk to you on a regular basis. So what I recommend doing is meditating for at least 5 minutes every day and letting the ego talk to you. So instead of thinking, because this is a complete misconception, instead of thinking that when you meditate, you have to make your mind go quiet, let your head go to that space and then just go, okay, tell me everything, and write it down, or talk it into a voice note thing on your phone, or just let yourself sit with it and ask questions. Let it come. Don't try to stop yourself from overthinking, because that's a trauma response in itself. When you do that every day for a period of time, then you can up the ante a little bit. So you can do something called fire scrying. So what you're going to do is you're going to get a candle, doesn't matter what kind, and you're going to light the flame and you're going to stare into that flame. And instead of just letting your mind think the thoughts, you're going to be trying to stare at the flame too. And so now your brain has to do two things. It has to stare at the flame, and it also has to be allowed to think and cycle. And now you're going to push yourself a little bit more. So exactly the same thing as before. You're going to let your head talk. You're going to jot down notes. You're going to write it down. You're going to put it in a voice note app, whatever you have to do. But you're also staring at the flame. And when you start to do that now over and over again, you're going to teach your brain how to do both things at once. So it's not going to feel like it has to put its boxing gloves on and fight the ego when you're doing your deep shadow work meditations. They can exist at the same time. And then when you get further and further into it and your body starts to trust that shadow work process, the ego will just get quiet on its own naturally. Or eventually it'll run out of things to say because you wrote them all down. It can't bug you about the groceries you didn't buy if you bought them, right? So just keep writing down the things it needs you to know. And hopefully that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Do you have enough time?
Yeah, we can let this one be the last one. And then if anybody has any other questions, you can just reach out.
Okay, so this might be like a bit of a complicated question, but I just had this thought, right? That how do we know that, for example, what I envisioned, for example, was a past life of mine?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was just, I transferred my consciousness to, because like on a collective, all the memories are connected, right?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I went to someone else's past life.
This is a question that I ponder myself that no one's ever asked me before. So I'm glad that you brought this up. I have thoughts. Jung also, just as he talked about the shadow and the unconscious mind, talked about the collective unconscious. So for anybody that's never heard about that before, it essentially means that every single one of us is connected. Every single one of us has experiences that are connected. So on some levels, there are things that we all respond to. And then there are things that we all together do not respond to, even though maybe we should. When we have memories like this that come up, there's no guaranteeing that it's yours versus somebody else's. However, if you have all those different sensory pieces of it, the mental, the emotional, the sensory, if they're all connected, it's still stuck in your body, which means you're holding it. So whether or not it's something that you lived or someone else lived, you still have to get rid of it. Now, what I do when I do shadow work for myself is I'll ask who it belongs to. Like I'll literally just ask myself, like, whose memory is this? Because there are times I will remember things from my ancestors and they're not my memories, but they live in my DNA through the process of epigenetics, which is how we process our DNA and pass it down. There's certain pieces of our genetic code that, like a light switch, can be flicked on or off. So anxiety can be passed down through families, or depression, or fear of specific things. One of the most interesting ways to look at this, or one of the most interesting examples of this, is a fear of spiders. Every human being is born with a fear of spiders. Now, from an evolutionary standpoint, I like spiders. They don't bother me at all. From an evolutionary standpoint, the reason why we are born with this fear is because it kept us safe in caveman days. But over time, you can unlearn that fear. So if you have experiences with spiders that you're like, oh, this thing's kind of cute, or it doesn't bother you, what will happen over time is that genetic code that's switched on will switch off. I used to have a pet snake, a python. freaked a lot of people out. Other people were like, that's awesome, cool, good for you. Same thing, it's an on or an off switch based on our survival. If a snake has never been a threat to you, eventually that light switch will flick off. But we are born with predispositions to things based on our epigenetics. So sometimes the memories that you have will be because there's a fear or a trauma that's being passed down through your blood that is living in your body. It's rare to tap into fears that aren't connected to you in some way, though. So it's somehow connected to you, even if it's not yours, through a family member or something like that.
That makes complete sense, because obviously we know that trauma is held in the body.
Yes, it is.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Danielle, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for your time. I feel like I've learned so much. This has helped me. So I just feel like my mind has just gone, like, it's completely expanded. I'm going to do things so differently after this workshop. Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you. Can you let everyone know as well, and obviously in the recording, like how we can connect with you? We've got a book coming out as well. What is that and when is it released?
All right, so in the chat box for everybody, I just put my website and also how you can get my new book on Amazon. That's the UK version of it. So I have 2 books. One of them is for the people dipping their toes in who want to do the subconscious stuff. That's the Shadow Seekers Journal, and you can buy that now on Amazon. For this one, it really is just journal prompts. So the way that this is designed to work is that you meditate, just like we did, for a couple minutes, connecting in your energy and allowing that theta brainwave pattern to slip into place. And then you ask the question, whatever it is that's at the top of the page that you turn to. And what you're going to do is you're going to write without thinking. So it's dipping your toes in. This is not true shadow work in the sense that we're going fully unconscious, but it's a way to start getting into that space. My book that's coming out this fall is called Shadow Work. This is with Union Square Publishing. And this is a traditional book, like all the things, everything about shadow work. So I get into the neuroscience, how trauma is stored in the body, how to do shadow work, the process of going through it. There's lots of trainings in here teaching you how to do this stuff on your own so that you don't need to go to somebody else. They'll link to meditations that you'll be able to do live with me so that you can actually have more recordings like this to keep dipping your toes in, and how to use all this stuff to actually manifest. Because when we tap into shadow work and we start releasing that energy, we can access the quantum field pretty easily. And that's a whole other science lesson of tapping into the quantum, using quantum potential to leap onto different timelines. We could go on to that forever. So you guys can pick up that book now. It's available for pre-order on Amazon and also at barnesandnoble.com. And everybody who pre-orders the book can come to the free virtual release party that's going to be happening on the same day, September 20th, where I'm going to have live Q&A, trainings, meditations, all kinds of other energy work, Kundalini, all the goodies. So I hope I see you guys there. And if you have questions about this or anything else, don't hesitate to reach out to me on social media.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful. I'm so excited for your book. You know that I've got your journaling one up here. Oh, you can't even see it. I forgot about my background, but yeah. I was like,
don't worry, behind those girls.
Yeah, behind my background. Yeah, I've got like a bookshelf, and yeah, the journaling one is up there. But yeah, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. I just feel so blessed that you blessed us with your time, your knowledge, your wisdom. Thank you so much. And I'll be sending out the recording to everyone as well. If I don't have your email, I can get it from you. Sonia, I know that I've got you on Telegram. But yeah, thank you so much everyone for attending as well. I really, really appreciate every one of you.
Thank you so much, guys. It's lovely
Thank you
meeting
all for this. Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
And thank you, Alex, too. Thank you both, Danielle and Alex. Thank you.
Of course.
Thanks, Sonia.
Bless you. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome.
Thank you.
Enjoy your evening, everyone, on the rest of your day. And Danielle, I'll send you the recording as well.
Sounds good. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye.